This is a story about the kind of story that becomes really deeply ingrained in your family's lore. It's one of those stories that they tell at every single family gathering, and every birthday party, every wedding, every celebration. You're just kind of waiting for the moment when this story comes up, because it's going to. For my family, my mom's side of the family, it happened when I was somewhere between like 8 and 10 years old, out in Pittsburgh. It's where my mom grew up. It's the house where she grew up, and we would go out for definitely for Christmas time, and usually in the summer also. And this was a summer trip. The most important thing about my grandparents' house, it all involved going down things. We would in the wintertime, we would slide down their carpeted stairs. And in the summertime, we would be hanging out outside, and it was all about the big driveway down into the basement, down to the backyard, rather. When I was, 10 years old, it seemed like Mount Everest. It was so tall and so steep, and it was insurmountable. Looking back, it was really only the level of from the first floor to the bottom of the basement. It was one of those ones where it just goes straight down. So this particular summer, we had, my mom was one of 6. She had 5 brothers and sisters. There was all sorts of cousins and aunts and uncles running around. This particular summer, we all decided to bring our bikes with us, and that was all sorts of fun with the backyard, with the driveway situation in the backyard. My 2 older cousins were kind of the daredevils of the bunch, and they found some plywood and cinder blocks and boards, and I don't even know what else, and they decided to set up a ramp at the bottom of this driveway where they started very slow. They put a very small ramp at the bottom, biked down it, went off the little ramp. It was fine. They went up a little higher, pedaled down a little faster, went off the ramp, and it was fine. And then they started at the very top of the hill, pedaled down as hard as they could, and went off the ramp. That got easy, so then they increased the height a little bit more, and that kind of went on. They're being very smart about it, trying in their daredevil nature. They would never start too high on that first attempt at the new ramp. Finally, it's getting really steep now at this point, steep enough that they were actually nervous about going on this ramp again. My grandfather had come out to see what we were doing. He had some. He was the brave one of the bunch, I guess. So he decided to take my pink bicycle with the streamers on the handlebars, and he said, "Listen, kids, I'll test this one out. It is too dangerous for you. That's true. I'm gonna try this one out before you do it, and then we'll go from there." However, Grandpa decided not to pay attention to the diligent safety requirements that my cousins had established. Grandpa goes to the very top of the hill on my 10-year-old girl's bike. Top of the hill, pedals as hard as he can the whole way down, goes up, continues the rotation around and down, and lands on his head. Don't worry, it's not that kind of a story. So we all gather around. Everyone's freaking out. My grandmother had heard some commotion from inside the house. She's hanging out the window, bellowing about what's going on. My grandfather sits up and looks around, and he stands up, and he's still just looking around. He said, "Well, I guess you can use the ramp." So he didn't. We didn't diagnose him with anything. We didn't take him to the hospital. I think that this was when I was 10, so this was long before concussion protocol was a thing. But I'm sure he must have been concussed at the very least. But this story became this thing that we always told at family gatherings. Do you remember the time that Grandpa flipped the bike? It was just a story of complete taking a risk and really trying to devote himself to the grandkids and having a good time. I think that it became this story that we tell all the time because it has some really important lessons that are, number 1, safety first. Number 2, wear a helmet. And number 3, if you don't pedal from the top of the hill sometimes. That's the best way to really go down in history.